fam, welcome back to the channel. This is Precious Styling. In today's tutorial, I'll be showing you the drafting process of the making of this trendy blouse, and I'll be showing you multiple ways you can achieve yours, be it with a zipper or with loops. So let's get creative. So first things first, from this starting point, which doubles as my shoulder line, I went down to mark my chest line at 9 inches. And from that same starting point, I went down to rule a line at my bust line at 11 inches. And from that same starting point, I went down to rule a line at my under bust line at 14 inches. And from that same point, I went down to rule a line at my waistline at 16 inches. And finally, from that starting point, I went down to rule a line at my hemline at 25 inches. Even though we wouldn't really be using this neckline, we will just create this neckline as a guide. So at this starting point, I'm going to take my neck width of 3 inches, and I'm going to be taking my neck depth of 3 inches, and I'm going to be using my curved ruler to connect both points together. So at the shoulder line, I'm going to be coming in by 7 inches to mark our shoulder span, and I'll just mark that there. And I'm going to be marking that same 7 inches on the chest line in order to make those points equal. Now at this point here, I'm going to be coming down by 1 inch to account for our shoulder slope, and then I'm going to be connecting that point to the neckline. So from the slope, I'm going to go down to mark my armhole depth, and you already know how we get our armhole depth. Your bust circumference divided by 6, then you add 1.5. So mine is 8 inches, which falls at the chest line, so that is fine. I'll just connect that line down. So I'll be getting the midpoint of this line that we just ruled, so I'll just double my tape over and mark the midpoint there. And at that midpoint, I'm going to be coming in by 0.5 inch, and then I'll connect that 0.5 inch I came in by to the slope. Now that we've done that, at this chest line, we're going to be marking our bust circumference divided by 4. So you mark whatever value you have on this chest line, and then we'll be connecting the slant line we just ruled down to this point in order to create our armhole. At this waistline, I'm going to be marking my bust span measurement divided by 2, which is 4.5 inches. Now my bust span is 9 inches. At this chest line, I'm also going to be marking that same 4.5 inches. At the waistline still, I'm going to be going down to mark 6 inches, and then I'm going to be rolling a straight line that cuts across these 3 points. Now at the under bust line and the waist, we are going to be tightening those areas with about 2.5 inches. Okay, so now that would be the darts that will be taken on this side. So we're going to just be dividing that 2.5 inches into 2, and we're going to be marking the value on either sides of this darts line. Now mark the same value even at the waistline on either sides of the dart line. And so we'll be connecting these points together. And so I'll be coming down from the bust line on the dart line by 1 inch, and I'm going to be connecting that point I just marked right now to either sides of this under bust dart. Having done this, we're going to be getting the midpoint of this shoulder here. So we'll just bend the tape over and mark the midpoint, and then from these points that we marked, we're going to be rolling a straight line to the peak of the dart we created. Now connect the waist dart to the base of the dart line. So we're going to determine our new neckline, that is the peak of the bustier, and I want it to go down by 6 inches. So I'll mark 6 inches on one part and mark 6 inches on the other in order to rule a line that will connect both points. At this point that intersect, I am going to be coming out and in by 0.5 inch on both sides of the line because I want to tighten the area above the bust. So I will just mark 0.5 inch on both sides, and then I am going to be connecting it to the bust area. So at this line that marks the new neckline, I'm going to be determining how the peak of the new neckline is going to curve into the armhole. So at this line, I am going to go in by 3 inches, and from that point I marked, which is 3 inches, I am going to blend that into the armhole. Okay, so I'm just going to use my curved ruler to do that. So now we're going to be replacing this dart we took at the overbust to the armhole area and then the chest line. For the armhole area, replacing it is not really necessary because we're not really using that armhole, later on. We won't be using it later on. But for the chest line, it is very important that you replace that dart to the other area of the armhole, because if you do not do that, the chest area may have some shortage. So I'll just be connecting these 2 points together to create our new armhole curve. Even though we won't be using this part at all, but it's best we replace all the darts we took away back to the pattern. Now is the time to start imputing all our circumferential body measurements. So at this point here, which symbolizes my bust circumference divided by 4, I'm going to be adding 2.5 inches as sewing allowance. At the waistline, I am going to be dividing my waist circumference divided by 4. I'm going to mark that there, and then I am going to replace these darts that we already took at the waistline. I'm going to replace that dart there, and then I'm going to be adding 2.5 inch allowance on that waistline. And at the hem of the blouse, I'm going to be marking my hip circumference divided by 4. I'm going to mark that there, and then I will be adding 2.5 inch allowance to that. Now that it is done, I would connect all the 3 points that I initially marked to each other. Now I'll be taking my side dart of 2 inches, and this is derived by the difference between your front and back shoulder to waist measurement. So the difference between my front and back shoulder to waist measurement is 2 inches, and that is the 2 inches I will be taking as my side dart. So I just marked 2 inches at the edge of the pattern paper, and then I'll be connecting it to the bust line this way. I will just be extending this vertical dart line to the hem of the pattern. Right now we'll be creating our scallop hemline. So anyhow you just want to do this, it's up to you. So I'll just be taking mine, maybe to go through the dart and just freestyle anyways. But just ensure that this scallop design you are creating ends 2.5 inches away from the edge of the pattern, which is your sewing allowance. Now if you want the side from the waist to the hem to be somewhat conical, you can just come out at the hemline by 1 inch. Okay, just come out by 1 inch and then connect the waist, the point at the waist, to this 1 inch you came out by, or you can still leave it just the way it is. So at this new extension here, we're going to come up by 1.5 inches because we're going to be connecting that point we marked to the scalloped hemline. Now we're going to be cutting out the entire pattern. Just watch how I cut this out. Would be closing up the side dart. So to close up the side dart, you will just slash through the lower dart leg. And then you are going to use the pattern paper to close up that side dart. So you just put your sellotape through it to hold it in place, and then cut out the remaining parts of the pattern. Feel free to place a pattern paper underneath that area because there is a little shortage at the sides there, and then retrace the pattern the way it ought to be, and then cut it out. Use a sellotape to also hold that in place, and we're done drafting this pattern. So now to draft the back pattern. So from the top of the pattern paper, I went down to rule a line at my chest line at 9 inches, as you can see there. And I also went down to rule a line at my waistline at 14 inches. Now you can see that there is a difference between the shoulder to waist measurement of the front and back. While the front is 16, the back is 14 inches. So from the top of the pattern paper, I also went down to mark the hemline at 23 inches, as you can see, and that is that about that. Now you can see this line here, which represents the zipper allowance line. So starting from the zipper allowance line, I measured my neck width of 3 inches and my neck depth of 1 inch. So I would be using my curved ruler to connect both points together. From the zipper allowance line, I will be taking my shoulder span measurement of 7 inches. I would also mark the same 7 inches on the chest line so that I will have a straight line. Please note, I am taking all this measurement for my zipper allowance line, so I will just use my ruler to connect both points together. So on the chest line, I'm going to be taking my bust circumference divided by 4. I will just mark that on that line, and then at this armhole line, I'm going to be taking my shoulder slope of 1 inch. I'm going to connect that to the neckline, and then I'll connect the points, the shoulder slope now, to the point where I marked my bust circumference divided by 4. At this chest line here, I'm going to be taking my bust span measurement divided by 2. So my bust span measurement divided by 2 is 4.5, and I'm just going to mark that there. And I'm also going to be marking that same 4.5 inches on the hemline as well. And then I'll be using my ruler to connect both points together in a straight line. At this waistline here, I'm going to be coming in and out of the dot line by 0.5 inch. And at the dot line below the waist, I'm going to be coming down by 6 inches, and on the dot line above the waist, I'm going to be coming down from the chest line by 1 inch, and then I'm going to be connecting all these points this way. We need to account for the zipper bulge, so we need to give a dart to this part. Okay, so in order for that the back to lay flat so that it doesn't bulge, so right now I will be coming in by 1 inch, and then I'm going to connect that point to the neckline as well as the hemline. Now we're going to be replacing the zipper allowance that we have already given it that to. Okay, so I'm going to be coming out by 1.5 inch at the neckline, and that already falls at the edge of the pattern paper, so that's fine. So at this waistline here, I am going to also be measuring 1.5 inch outside of that slope. Okay, so I'm just going to mark that there, and then at the hemline we still have 1.5 inch, so that's fine. So now I'll be connecting this point to this other points as well. Henceforth, this would be the new zipper allowance, no longer the initial straight line. Now that we've eliminated our zipper bulge, now from this chest line, now this point here, that is where we'll begin taking our bust circumference divided by 4. That's when we'll begin taking all our circumferential body measurement. So from this part now, I would take my bust circumference divided by 4. I would mark that there, and then I will be adding 2.5 inches as sewing allowance. Now at the waistline, look at this point here. This is where I'm going to be taking the waist circumference divided by 4 measurement from. So I will just mark the value that I have there, and then I will replace this dot of 1 inch that we already have on the waistline. I will replace that there, and then I'm also going to be adding 2.5 inches as sewing allowance. Now on the hemline, look at the points there. I'm going to be taking my hip circumference divided by 4. I will just mark that on that hemline there, and I'm going to be adding 2.5 inches as sewing allowance. Alright guys, I will be connecting these 2 points first with my ruler. You actually want the lower area of the blouse to be equal with the front pattern, so I'll just take the front pattern and align the waist to the waist of the back pattern, okay? And then I would be tracing out the front pattern, you know, the extended area of the front pattern on the back pattern this way. If you want any design on the hemline, you can go ahead and do that. If you want it scalloped, that's up to you, but I want mine this way. We won't be using the upper part which serves at the yoke, so if you want the neckline which is at this chest line to have a different style, you can just create yours anyhow you want it. For me, I just want to go down at the chest line by about 0.5 inch, so that is up to you. That's optional. If you want it this way, you can still leave it this way. Now I'll be cutting out this pattern, so just watch how I cut this out. It's advisable you give notations to the pattern so you don't mix up everything at the end of the day. Like I promised you earlier, let me give you another alternative. So if you want your blouse to have an opening, you know, at the back, whereby you are going to put in eyelets and you are going to use loops to tighten up the blouse, you can also go by this option I want to show you. So at this inner line now, you know, the inner zipper allowance, okay, you are going to come in by 1.25 inches or 1 inch, as the case may be, depending on how open you want the area around the loops to be, okay? So I'm just going to mark 1.25 inches on this line here. Then at the waistline, I'm also going to mark 1.25 inches as well, and then at the hemline, I'm going to also mark 1.25 inches as well. Now I'll be connecting these 3 points together. That is for people that want theirs to have loops and have eyelets at the back. As for me, I am going to be using a zipper on mine. So once we have connected these points together, you can just cut it out, okay, and then use this pattern, this new found pattern, to create that alternative that you want. But if you want yours to have a zipper like mine, you can leave the pattern this way. And this is how the back pattern will look like, either with a zipper or with loops. And with this, we've come to the end of the drafting part of this tutorial. In the next tutorial, I'll be showing you the sewing process of this outfit. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you're yet to subscribe to the channel, hit on the subscribe button right away. Share this video with your community. I'll be seeing you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.